It's that time of the week again. Let's start binging. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Low Budget Binge is where we venture down the path less traveled and look at low budget, no budget, and sometimes international films that never get that top billing you see with the usual Hollywood fare. I'll indicate in the review down below where you can find these films along with their trailers. Here we go. Bad Ben 3, Batter Ben, aka The Final Chapter, is streaming on Tubi and the Bad Ben website. It's directed and written by Nigel Bach. In this installment of the Bad Ben series, mistakenly marked The Final Chapter, a pair of paranormal investigators attempt to make a documentary about the house on Steelmanville Road, where the previous Bad Ben films have been set, and instead find out that Tom Riley, the writer, director, and series creator Nigel Bach, actually survived the ordeals in the original film. But Tom has returned a broken man, and the more investigator Jackie, played by Jackie Baker, and her cameraman Schmitty, played by Matthew Schmid, probe into the mystery, the chances of their survival lessen. Bad Ben 3, Batter Ben, is much more of a comedy than previous films. Or I guess the comedy is more front and center and well realized in this installment more so than ever. There are quite a few comedic setups and payoffs that really work, and while the previous films had their moments, this one induced a chuckle or two much faster for me. One of the things I love to watch is the development of skill when I follow the path of filmmakers, and Bach's comedic skills have improved quite a bit here. It doesn't work all the time, but it works more often than in previous movies. The problem is that the scares just aren't as prevalent in Bad Ben 3. Here's the thing. If I'm by myself in a house and all of a sudden a door slams, I'm shitting myself. But that visceral fear just doesn't translate really well when it comes to a film. It's just too simple an effect. It's just someone pulling a string off camera to make the door slam. But Bad Ben 3 wants the pants shitting effect to happen every time the doors slam, and they slam often. Unfortunately, that just doesn't translate, especially when that's the only scare that occurs in the first half of the movie. I get it. The film is escalating to something, but when even the characters don't do so much as twitch when the door slams, it really doesn't succeed in scaring the audience. Repeated door slams is even less scary. In the original and its sequel prequel, Bach spreads the creepiness of the house being haunted by evil entities more evenly with a slow but steady escalation of events. Not so much here, and it makes for a lesser film. I will say that I like Jackie Baker. She really plays a spunky, free spirit character who is eager to capture paranormal things on her camera. She's got an infectious way about her, and is by far the most talented actress so far in this Bad Ben series. Her enthusiasm is what's going to keep you watching until the very end. The cautious and gun-shy cameraman is a long-standing cliche in these types of films, but Matthew Schmid plays his role decently. Bach, again, is enjoyable to watch as he's just a big oaf with a flat line delivery, but still proves to be a likable throughway between the original film and this one. Bad Ben 3 has better sound effects with a growling demon, although they use that effect way too often, and some of the visual effects work better as it seems like a bit more shekels were spent in getting this one done. There's a shadowy encounter with the Jersey Devil in the woods that's hard to discern in the darkness, but what you can see is pretty cool. The original Bad Ben ended with a done-to-death drag-away sequence, not to be beat. This third installment features a badly acted up-nose confessional where the cameraman Schmitty weeps out his last words. And then it also has another drag-away to cover all the bases. Yes, I know this series has always been a bit tongue-in-cheek, but this one feels like it's parodying itself at times. I hate to think that the Bad Ben series peaked at the second film, but number 3 just lacks the oomph, scares, and fun of the previous entries. I'm hoping Bad Ben 3 is just a bump in the road. There are 6 more films to date, and it's going to be a long 6 weeks if it gets worse from here. See you next time when I take a look at Bad Ben 4, The Mandela Effect. Evil at the Door is new on-demand and digital download from Terror Films. It's also available streaming on Tubi. It's directed and written by Kipp Tribble. When Liz, played by Andrea Sweeney Blanco, comes to stay with her sister Jessica, played by Sunny Doench, and her disapproving husband Daniel, played by Matt O'Neill, she has no idea that they are the target of a home invasion group called the Locusts. As 4 dangerous men enter the house, Liz hides under the bed in fear of being targeted like the rest of the family. Borrowing heavily from The Purge, Kipp Tribble's Evil at the Door does a decent job with singular location and a simple plot. The idea of a secret organization that hires a group of random killers to wipe out a house is an interesting one, and deviates enough from the familiar Purge motif to be unique. Given specific instructions to follow in order to ensure the continuation of the Locust organization, it's dark but intriguing to watch the carefully laid plans go sideways as they didn't factor in the presence of Liz. I was truly impressed at how Kipp was able to maintain a level of suspense for the duration of the movie, as the killers show much patience themselves in waiting for the right time to strike. I dug the quartet of killers. The 3 pros, played by Scott Hamm, Richard Siegelman, and writer-director Kipp Tribble, are all tough guys, but play their parts with distinction. I also liked the effing new guy / loose cannon played by Kenny Yates. The back and forth between these killers is well realized. To pass the time, the killers reminisce about previous successful Locust jobs, tallied up with tattoos on their forearms. I feel it was during these segments, though, that the lack of the film's budget sets in. There are minute flashbacks to the previous slaughters, but I think the point would have been made had there been more carnage in these flashbacks. Most likely it wasn't in the budget, but the dialogue alone attempts to be Tarantinoian diatribes, but lack that unique spin in order to work. There are also a few subplots that really fail to be resolved. It appears Liz might know one of the killers, but this never really comes to a satisfying resolution. I also think it's a missed opportunity to not give Daniel, who is disapproving of Liz's visit because of her history with drugs, a later scene where he gets to say, "I told you so." It really feels that there's a third act that was sliced out of the script due to time and money, leaving these plot threads unattended to. I don't want to oversell Evil at the Door. It's a low-budget home invasion flick with a Purge twist. It's low on blood and true carnage, but the acting is better than average, and you get a cameo by Willard's Bruce Davison as the Locust leader, so that's pretty keen. The film had some solid character work, and I was impressed at how filmmaker Tribble made the simple plot filled with cold-blooded tension. The Long Night, aka The Coven, is new on demand and digital download from WellGo USA. It's directed by Rich Ragsdale and written by Mark Young and Robert Sheppe. Grace, played by Scout Taylor Compton, has been paying an investigator to look into her past. She's an orphan and has no idea who her parents were, but a call from the PI offers up a clue that sends Grace and her boyfriend Jack, played by Nolan Gerald Funk, to a southern plantation in the middle of nowhere for answers. Instead, they encounter lots of snakes and find themselves surrounded by cultists who claim Grace is to be the vessel for which an ancient entity can be reborn. The Long Night is a great setup. While the story gets Grace and Jack to the plantation in a cliched way, Taylor Compton and Funk are likable enough to care about their fates, even though the couple is fighting as they have just come from a disastrous visit with Jack's parents. Taylor Compton has been making the rounds in D-grade horror films for the last few years, but she's quite talented. She seems to like the horror genre, has one hell of a scream, is quite easy on the eyes, and seems to really put her all into every role she does, no matter how small the film. Here's hoping her strong performance in The Long Night leads to bigger and better things for the spunky actress. It's also great to see Jeff Fahey in a very small cameo, and Deborah Kara Unger in a bit more substantial role as one of the cultists. Unger has an alien-like quality about her that makes every role stand out, and Fahey is just always fun to see. One thing that did stand out in The Long Night was the music, score, and sound design. The sounds encountered in the opening moments is reminiscent of the beginning of The Shining, and as the film went on, there were some other audio risks taken that set this film apart from the rest. It really succeeds in setting up a moody feel to the atmospheric southern landscape. A few drone shots at the beginning also add to the size and scope of the film. While the opening drone shot has become quite cliché as of late, these shots have some unique landscape to feature. While the acting is strong and the lead-in is intriguing, the main problem with The Long Night is that there really isn't a lot of places for it to go. It is, for the most part, a single location film. And while a lot seems to happen in the time spent on the plantation, the film left me wanting more and to see what happens next. This film feels more like an origin story than a complete film, as the real shit seems like it would hit the fan right after the credits roll. Sure, Grace undergoes quite the ordeal, but the end left me hanging uncomfortably. I can't wholeheartedly recommend The Long Night, as its ending left me wanting, but there is some solid gore and a palpable atmosphere of dread going on throughout. The acting is better than what one usually expects from this type of film. It's just that a lot of the potential hinted at in the engrossing moments is not achieved by the last reel. WARHUNT is new on demand and digital download from Saban Films. It's available on DVD and Blu-ray on April 12th. It's directed by Mauro Borrelli and written by Mauro Borrelli, Reggie Yeyohara III, and Scott Svatos. A weary group of soldiers stationed in Germany towards the end of World War II are led by the battle-damaged Major Johnson. Yes, that really is the name given to Mickey Rourke's character. And a team leader, Sergeant Brewer, played by Robert Knepper. The soldiers are given an assignment to take a soldier named Walsh, played by Jackson Rathbone, deep into the German forest to recover a top-secret thingy. But after acquiring this thingy, the men find themselves under siege by a coven of witches. WARHUNT is more fun than it really should be. It's got a performance by Mickey Rourke that is heavy on the ham. It's a relatively familiar concept, and it plays into a garbled mess by the end, but damn it if I wasn't endeared by this film simply because of how nuts it is. Mickey Rourke is on another level of acting these days. While his face has become almost unrecognizable, he delivers a unique performance here as the strange Major Johnson. Like some kind of swarthy Nick Fury, Rourke brandishes an eye patch and seems to have battled these witches before, leaving him a groaning, battered man. Say what you will about this actor, but he sure does make an impression on screen, and it's always interesting to me. I also really like the insane effects and horror sequence that go on throughout WARHUNT. While the typical paranoia and deterioration of sanity goes with the troupe as they get further and further into the forest, the carnage that is left by these witches as they pick the soldiers off one by one is quite gruesome. There's an especially gnarly pig roast scene that'll make your toes curl, and another where a soldier acting not quite right is revealed to be stuffed with black feathers. The witches themselves are designed distinctly as well. WARHUNT is one of those films that straddle the line separating war stories and horror fables. The soldiers feel legit and react to the horror in a typical but entertaining way. And that horror potently plays against the war-torn backdrop with some fantastically filmed captures of thickly forested scenery. It's a fun film, better than I was expecting. It's schlocky and predictable, but still managed to surprise me with its over-the-top performances and memorable effects. WARHUNT is not blazing any new territory. It reminded me a bit of Southern Comfort as it features a team of soldiers as fish definitely out of their depth. Rourke's performance is horribly hammy, but a blast to watch. All in all, a good time can be had with this one. Finally, we have The Midnight Swim. It's new on demand and digital download, and new on DVD and Blu-ray from Yellow Veil Pictures. It's directed and written by Sarah Adina Smith. Not all horror films have to have copious amounts of blood and gore. The Midnight Swim is practically bloodless and focuses mainly on the relationship between three sisters as they reconnect to honor their recently deceased mother, played by Donnie Darko's Sparkle Motion mom, Beth Grant. While this might be the making for a sappy melodrama, instead it turns into an effective little ghost story. The three sisters are made up of June, played by Lindsay Burge, the youngest of the three and most introverted, who is filming a documentary to commemorate this meeting and supplies the first-person POV by holding the camera most of the time. Annie, the eldest daughter, who moved away from home, is played by Jennifer LaFleur, and Isla, the middle and most outgoing sibling, is played by Boardwalk Empire's Alexa Palladino. The highlight of the film is seeing these three sisters play off of one another in an effortless and all too believable manner. While each deal with death in their own way, the three sisters also come to terms with losing someone they sometimes loved and sometimes hated, as their mother oftentimes was more preoccupied with Wiccan rituals surrounding a particular lake. The entire film takes place at the lake house they grew up in, which serves as a reminder for all of the good and bad memories the three sisters have survived. What impressed me the most is that while the film isn't your typical horror film, I was wrapped up in the story from beginning to end, mostly because of the nuanced and complex performances by the actresses playing the three sisters. Even without the bizarre elements, which I'll get into in a bit, this is a ghost story with someone who had just passed haunts the living through their memories and shared experiences. The mother is ever present here, through videotapes, photographs, and through stories and reenactments the girls take part in. And while things do get good and scary by the end, the real thrill comes from the push and pull relationships these three sisters have with one another. There's a mystical element to this film, and it never really makes clear whether this is something from the other side or something manipulated by those overcome with grief. Part of the acceptance of death is to overcome the irrational elements that the spirit may still be around, watching and manipulating things from the other side. From the beginning, when one of the sisters asks if they think their mother has been reincarnated, the metaphysics of death and how little we understand it is delved into here. When dead birds start slamming into windows, the camera is turned on by itself and filming things on its own, and when mysterious articles of clothing are found in the lake where their mother died, this serves as a mysterious charge to the film which propels the mystery. But all of this is secondary to me, as this is one of the more intimate and more effective found footage films I've ever seen at the way it works in the mystical elements into the story of these three sisters. While I should hate this film, as it does involve a lot of girl talk over lattes and the usual "we girls are doing it for ourselves" air about it, there's even a lip-synced song number that manages to be not so annoying. I couldn't find the anger for it because of the overwhelming sense of dread hovering over each frame, supported by the gargantuan talents of Burge, LaFleur, and Palladino as the three sisters. The Midnight Swim is not going to be for hardcore horror fans, but for me, this after-hours dip felt refreshing as it caused unease and terror effectively in a real-world relationship sense as well as an otherworldly one.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your